Greetings, Internet! Welcome to yet another episode of Mike and Matt's Comic Watchers Show. I'm Matt. This is Mike. How the heck are you, Mike?
I'm good. We're soggy over here, but
yeah, you got a little bit of that remnant from what we had. It dumped buckets on us the last 3 days.
This crap just doesn't stop, man.
So yeah. So it just hit me, like literally as I was starting the show. This is episode 167, which means this is my 150th episode of the show. So I was like, dang.
Okay, wow, that's crazy. I wonder what that was. So I must be like right around like.
You came on after Nick, and Nick's first episode was 52.
Yeah. So that's like what, show 75? I don't math, sir. I don't math.
I mean, one of us could go back and like dig through the archives and actually learn and figure it out. But you weren't terribly long after Nick.
No.
Like no more than 15 or 20 episodes, I don't think.
Yeah.
So speaking of Nick, you know, we he's a big muckety muck at Valiant now, and he ain't showed us no love and got us that sexy Valiant creator action on our show.
Oh.
But you know, we still love you, Nick. We're gonna call you out. Yeah. And you know, if we can get Clunrad on here to talk about Exo Manowar, or Jeff Parker to talk about Ninjak, or excuse me, Steve Fox to talk about Archer and Armstrong, any of these fine, lovely folk that are hanging out at Valiant Town, you know, we'll take them anytime we want. And now that Professor Cody White is a part of the Valiant ecosphere, Mike, I feel like we could double our chances now of getting Valiant talent on the show. So, you know, just saying.
May the odds ever be in our favor.
You know, look, I've still got the old Valiant Watch intro that I could like literally play right now. And it, like, So, God, Valiant peeps,
that looks like a bad video.
Want to get the hookup? Come hang out with us. But this is actually going to be a pretty somber show. All jokes aside, it's taken us a couple weeks to get to a point where we could actually like have the headspace to talk about the losses of Neal Adams and George Perez. And I mean, especially the two of them just so close together, like right over a week. And, you know, we've been talking about doing this show for, I think, about 2 weeks now, and just life has kind of intervened. And then today, of all damn days that we were going to do it, news breaks out of Hollywood land that freaking Ray Liotta passed away. And I mean, it's a killer to me because, I mean, Ray Liotta was only 67.
Yeah.
And from what we know, he just passed away in his sleep down there in Dominican Republic.
Filming, I believe.
Filming a movie, yeah. And I mean, just very suddenly, there was no word, or at least no word so far, that he was sick or anything like that. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, Goodfellas, the role that he'll always be known for is Henry Hill.
Right.
That movie is a touchstone in my life. Like Scorsese and Pesci and De Niro and Paul Sorvino and all of them just put in. That's such it's one of the best movies ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think too many people would argue with that.
Right.
And to lose Ray Liotta just all of a sudden like that, like, damn, what a gut punch, you know?
Yeah. And it's crazy that it's like stuff like, you know, I don't want to say it's crazy, but it just boggles the mind, you know, with when Ray, like, folks like Bob Saget and Ray Liotta,
Yeah.
just like they're here, they appear to be fine, and then an accident happens, or they're no longer with us for whatever reason, and they're not that. They weren't old. I mean, yeah, they were up in years,
Norm
but
Macdonald was what, 62?
Yeah.
So Bob Saget was 64. I mean, Ray Liotta's 67. Like, what the hell, man?
I mean, it's not like they were, silver foxes. I mean, yeah, they leave behind a legacy, but it's like they still had plenty. They still had plenty, gas.
Plenty of good years. That's just too damn young.
Yeah. So sad.
And yeah, it really is. It really is. So our hearts go out to Ray Liotta's surviving family and friends. He really always struck me as a really wonderful human being outside of his body of acting work, which is pretty respectable.
Right.
So yeah, peace be with you, Ray Liotta, and yeah. So now we're going to move on to God. I can't believe we lost Neal Adams. And I mean, God bless. It's been like nearly a month to the day now. I didn't realize that. He passed away on April 28th. And I mean, Neal freaking Adams, dude. Where do you even start with Neal Adams, Mike? Help me out. Like, I'm honestly finding myself kind of at a loss of words because there's so much big stuff there.
There's a lot to unpack, in all aspects of their lives. I mean, I don't mean to act like we knew them on some type of personal level, but from what we read and what we know, what we've seen in the interviews, there's so much depth and character with their persons as well as what they gave us. I mean, look at what Neal Adams. We can start with his unionization.
I mean, we could we could start beyond the page. Absolutely, fighting for creators' rights.
Right, and not to mention, what he did with Siegel and Schuster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, buddy.
And it's like, not only are we talking about a titan, with his work, but a titan of the industry all around. And that is
like, if you got a Mount Rushmore of comics creators,
right?
I mean, or not just artists, Mike, but creators.
Sure, the whole spectrum. I mean,
there's no way Neal Adams isn't up there with Kirby.
Oh yeah, the thing is, without, and Kirby, obviously we would talk about, we're throwing Kirby and Ditko in this conversation, but comics looks completely different without Adams and Perez.
Absolutely.
In such a way about that. Right now, I mean, obviously, great artists and stuff is going to come along. Someone was going to write, something as spectacular as the Judas Contract and stuff like that. But what we're missing is like that what's the word I'm looking, that well-roundedness, where we have ourselves, like we have the good artists and the great artists now, but what I don't think we have currently is that titan of the industry, and I don't have obviously McFarlane, Larson. We have.
I was actually thinking, like, personality wise, like championing creators' rights and so on. I mean, I think you could make that case for McFarlane 25 years ago,
right?
But I think he's past that now.
Sure, different.
He's got it. He's got his money, and it is what it is. I ain't mad at him.
Right.
He's a legend. Todd McFarlane's a legend in his own right.
Right.
And I'm certainly not gonna say anything nasty about him. But except that he very foolishly got into a protracted legal battle with Neil Gaiman and lost spectacularly. But that's another conversation. But when you talk about Neal Adams, I mean, it's not, Mike, I don't think it's a stretch to say that there is comic book art before Neal Adams and after Neal Adams.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like and I there are much more learned comic book historians than you or I that have surely by now expounded ad infinitum on the virtues of Neal Adams' art. But I mean, even the bests of the best pre Neal Adams, Kirby, Ditko, Romita, so on, they had a certain comic bookiness about them. And all of a sudden, here comes Neal Adams, and shit just looks real.
Right.
Especially with Nick Giordano inking him. And I like, that's not even getting into the introducing John Stewart, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, creating Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul, Man Bat, all those type of things. And shit, I mean, hell, Superman versus Muhammad Ali. Let's get into the man. That is an awesome, awesome looking comic.
Yeah.
And like, he could have just been that artist,
right.
And he would have had his place in history. But then he, like you were saying, Mike, he turns around and he becomes this massive champion for creators' rights. And it's pretty well known that Siegel and Schuster had both fallen on exceedingly hard times before he was able to basically publicly shame DC and Warner Brothers into compensating the creators of Superman fairly.
Yeah.
So shit, man. Like,
well, you also got to think, going back to what you were talking about when you brought in, like, there's pre, Adams, and then there's post Adams in the art, and he brought a way of layering colors that the industry hadn't seen until he came in and started kind of really just, I won't even say changing the game. He almost created a new game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No two ways about it, man.
Yeah. And I mean, and to go back, I mean, Neal Adams' art. I mean, the lines, I mean, everything is just so clean, And
I mean, even into his later years, his last few, like the Batman versus Ra's al Ghul miniseries were not creatively well received. Fans did, always way past his prime. But you got to remember, when he's drawing these things, he was in his late 70s. Of course, it wasn't going to look as sharp as it used to. Whose art would, right? Nobody. Okay, maybe Joe Kubert's would have.
Yeah.
Because he was still, like, up until he passed away, and I think 2008, his art was still pretty sharp. But I mean, nobody, typically you see these artists hit a peak, and then they either plateau, they're just good doing what they've been doing, or like for example, John Byrne, they just plummet off a cliff.
Yeah.
And I don't think it can honestly be said that Neal Adams did that.
No.
Now, did he make some questionable creative choices in the 80s and 90s, like some of his stuff? Yeah, I mean, the world did not need Mr. T and the T-Force.
Well, let's not be judgy now. I mean,
okay, I don't know if need is the right word, but
wanted extremely bad.
We didn't know we wanted a Mr. T comic drawn by Neal Adams, but there we were. I mean, his continuity studios, his passion for creators' rights, and I mean, just the level of game-changing draftsmanship that he brought to comics. He's like a top. He's a top 2 artist in the history of comics.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you can't. I don't even know who would argue that. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't even think
it gets a little murky because you've got Will Eisner, but Will Eisner is typically not thought of in terms of comic books because the Spirit was originally comic strips. And it gets a little confusing there. So I mean, Kirby obviously,
Mhm.
Neal Adams obviously, Will Eisner has a whole damn award named after him. So, but
Maybe kind of want to think of him, right?
yeah, not exclude Will Eisner there.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mike, how did you get introduced to Neal Adams' art? Like, what was your intro there?
I think it was, was it two? I think it was when I saw the cover for Batman 251, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Because when I was younger, when I first got into comics, and this is bad, I was more kind of like story and writer focused. So it was like writers and stuff that I was, and it wasn't until later, probably maybe early teens that I started kind of, you know, paying attention to who was drawing what and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it was that cover, and there's a cleanliness about it. It's clean. It's unmistakable.
Oh yeah. I
I just
mean, Batman 251.
yeah, right. So yeah, I just and
Joker's five-way revenge for those keeping score at home.
there you go. But what about you? What was your
Well, I was just looking because I had this old trade of Batman Tales of the Demon that I think came out around 92. Yeah, it was 92. It came out in tandem with Batman Returns. And it's got all of that original Neal Adams, Ra's al Ghul stuff in it. But at the time I had read it, I was only 11, 12 years old.
right.
And to me, it was just Batman stuff. It's, oh, this is really cool. It's Batman, right? So, like maybe about 4 or 5 years later, I was at my my local comic shop, New World Comics and Games, and I was really like my mentor in comics, a guy named Kurt Anderson, was trying to talk to me about older comics. And I was kind of like you. I was like, man, older comics, whatever. Those are lame. I want to read Preacher. I want to read Sandman. Those old comics suck. And he's like, no. You've got to like look at this guy's art. Look at Neal Adams' art. Whatever. And then, he starts showing me some of the choice Neal Adams stuff. And it just really caught my eye. I was like, holy crap, this is, because at the time when you think of old comics, you're thinking of, especially DC, maybe that cleaner, like Kurt Swan style Silver Age look, or Carmine Infantino, somebody like that.
Yeah.
And Neal Adams is like, holy shit. Like this is the real deal. And so yeah, I really start paying attention and reading up on all that old Batman stuff as I could get my hands on it, and really studying what Neal brought to the game. Because I mean, if you're even talking about, I mean, like Ben Casey or any of that super duper early stuff. I mean, even leading up to his Warren work and then Strange Adventures, which introduced Deadman.
Right.
I mean, it's just so striking.
Yeah.
And like, do yourself a favor, anyone listening, if look up the cover for Strange Adventures number 207. And remember that came out in 1967, 55 years ago. God. And like there's nothing else on the shelf that looks like, or the racks, I guess, at the time that looked like it. And yeah, it's just so damn striking, Mike.
Well, that I was gonna bring up, it kind of reminds me of when you said like, well, it was just Batman stuff at the time.
Yeah.
And so when you're reading like the reprints and stuff like that of like the old Green Lantern, like Danny O'Neill's run and stuff. And so I still remember, I think can't remember which cover he did. Was it? Oh, anyway, but it was that run that when you think, oh, it's just Green Lantern stuff. It's whatever. You're not really kind of soaking it in for what it is. And
yeah. I mean, up until that point, it's very fair to say that Green Lantern is just kind of your stereotypical two-dimensional,
right,
atomic age DC square jawed, bland superhero.
Yeah.
And what was most interesting to me, Mike, is, and I had never thought of Green Lantern in these terms until I saw it from Neal Adams and Denny O'Neil. But in a sense, the Green Lanterns, and of course Hal Jordan, are cops.
Yeah,
they're space cops. And when I'm not sure whose idea it was to pair him up with the arch angry liberal reimagined Green Arrow, cranky curmudgeon that we all know and love now. But what a brilliant odd couple pairing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so far ahead of their time.
Oh, absolutely.
That little series, that little era of Green Lantern, and it's one of those things when you figure it out, later in life, you're kind of kicking yourself going, God, I should have been there. I missed it.
I didn't know about this. Yeah, definitely. And of course, then you've got you've got the Speedy's a heroin addict. You've got his work over at Marvel on X-Men, and at least 3 of the chapters of the Kree Skrull War. I mean, dude's list. Do what?
I said he was everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just shocking that the sheer amount of just the body of work that Neal Adams produced that is so freaking relevant to the maturation and evolution of comic book art as an art form, right?
Yep.
And yeah, like there will never be another Neal Adams.
No, never.
There can't be.
No.
So
I think that's the. I don't want to say this in a dark way, but I think his uniqueness, the fact that his uniqueness can be duplicated, is almost a great thing. That way, he stays highlighted. He stays kind of in the moment, and it's just he just keeps being that learning, that learning block.
Absolutely. So I mean, so it wasn't enough that we lost Neal Adams. George Perez, 12 days later, not even 2 weeks, he passed away. And that was sad, but less of a shock, Mike, because of course, we all knew it was coming when 5 months prior, he'd publicly announced that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It was serious enough that he wasn't going to fight it. He was just going to do palliative care. So we knew that our time as fans, the world's time with George Perez was limited.
Right.
And it still doesn't make it any less of a gut punch. It probably would have hit a little less hard if it hadn't been right on the heels of Neal Adams. But God, you want to talk about an artist that I don't think ever peaked? George Perez, man.
Just kept going. He was like the Energizer Bunny.
His style just got sharper and cleaner as he went. I mean, that man, look, when he drew Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds in 2008, 2009, that freaking comic had no business looking as good as it did from an artist that had been in the game for almost 40 years at that point.
Yeah.
No business. None. There's no way. There are literal hundreds of characters in that comic, and they're all distinct, and they're all look, man. Bang, right there.
Yeah.
We got there was only one man that could draw JLA and Avengers, and it was George Perez. We all know this. But Perez, he came in, he was like a studio assistant to Rich Buckler, I think. Although what's interesting to me about saying that is he far surpassed his mentor's skill. Now, no diss on Rich Buckler. I've read a lot of good comics with Rich Buckler art. He created Deathlock. That's cool. I love Deathlock. But man, George Perez, like by the end of the 70s, he was already untouchable. Then, of course, he teams up with Marv Wolfman and does New Teen Titans, makes that Deathstroke guy, and Cyborg, and Beast Boy, and Raven, and Brother Blood.
Some of the greatest characters.
Yeah. Like, the Titans, as we know them, exist because of Wolfman and Perez.
Yep.
But the thing, Mike, the thing that really gets me is, of course, George Perez was an amazing artist. He could draw any character. He could draw any number of characters and make it look good. But I think the thing that really sticks out in my mind when I think about George Perez's memory and legacy, excuse me, is just what a wonderful human being he was.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Sadly, I never came across him at conventions, but all the stories. I mean, I Cody talks about him, all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard one bad thing about George, and
you won't
come in contact with.
And you won't. He was just like this huge-hearted man that genuinely loved interacting with fans. I mean, after, like, who in the world knows that they have less than a year left to live and like, yeah, I'm going to go out and sign autographs for as long as I can, right?
And the great thing, he did it with a smile. He was always smiling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and God, man, bless him, because he just, like you said, up until that final bell, man, he was still out and about and still trying to sign stuff and making
and his wife and family were really, really good about giving the fans updates, because they just inherently understood how much love George Perez had for the fans of his work and in general. And I got to tell you, like, those last few months worth of pictures, like watching him get thinner and thinner, because he was a big dude.
He was.
In his prime. Man, it was heartbreaking, but yet he always had a smile on his face.
Yeah. And I think that's just, I mean, that's an amount of physical and emotional and mental strength that I don't think anyone could ever imagine.
No.
There's just no amount of strength, I think, that you can even begin to fathom. And like we already said, I mean, the last bell, he was smiling and wanting to know about the fans, and it's, it's dark poetry, but he passed on Free Comic Book Day. I mean, it's like,
yeah, he did.
I mean, it's forever. It's forever his day now, but it's like, I mean, there's a dark poem in there about that. So it's But yeah, the open memorial service for him was held at MegaCon in Orlando just 4 days ago on the 22nd. From what I understand, it was really awesome and beautiful. And I sure do wish I could have been there, but God, just like Neal Adams, the sheer number of touchstone comics for the entire flippin' industry, right? Yep.
That he had a hand in usually drawing, of course, an Infinity Gauntlet, Hulk Future Imperfect, Crisis on Infinite Earths, his stint writing one, and frankly, just completely reimagining Wonder Woman post-Crisis. Pardon me. His Avengers run in the 70s included the Korvac saga.
Great story. One of my favorites.
Oh, dude. If you're gonna talk about all-time great Avengers stories, man, forget the Kree Skrull War. It's all about the Korvac saga.
Mm-hmm.
I will fight a man on that one. I absolutely will. JLA and Avengers. I mean, shoot, Avengers proper. with Kurt Busiek, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, dude, just the sheer amount of of hugely important comics that both of these men touched. It's such a I don't even have words, Mike. Like there's just not words for what the loss of these two men means to the industry.
And I don't think there could be words because a majority of their catalog is it's must read.
Yeah,
it's must have.
That's a good way to put it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if you have it digital, hard copy, graded. I mean, these are books that we've been talking about for the past half hour plus. I mean, this is recommended reading. This isn't oh, they redid Venom and it's really cool. You should read these three, or we redid. I
mean, you should be reading Venom right now.
You should be. But oh, Superman took off his glasses, which was a great issue, which was a great time.
Yeah.
But those
are we going to be talking about it in 10 years?
Probably not.
5 years?
Probably could be. But these are books and these are characters and these are stories that move mountains.
Yeah.
Absolutely. These are collected. They're collected works. You don't see them on the shelves because they can't keep them on the shelves, and there's a reason why
they're perpetually in print, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting here thinking now about, damn, who do we need to wrap in bubble wrap to protect? Who's out there that's still around? I mean, I'm talking about John Romita's still going.
Yeah.
You'll occasionally see like an alternate cover from him or a variant cover. I mean,
yeah.
Shooter, Jim Shooter, Claremont and Byrne, Walt Simonson.
Yeah, there's there's a few.
I mean, just kind of throwing some big names out there. Marv Wolfman, God, we lost. Sienkiewicz.
Yeah,
he's around.
Yeah, Sienkiewicz, but he's not that old, is he?
No. He's younger than. He was really young when he got to start. Like he was, I think, barely 20.
Yeah, I was about to say
only about 62 or 63.
Yeah. But no, I see what
kind of thinking about like historic artists.
Gotcha.
Or writers. Of course, Alan Moore and Frank Miller.
Sure.
Whatever. Nobody cares about what they're doing anymore.
Damn.
Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
I know I'm not. So,
but yeah, it's I mean, just both of their achievements, on and off the field, I mean, are just immeasurable, irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Never again. Never again. We'll never see.
No.
I mean, it's
and
it's just it's different now. I mean,
it is. This is the first time in our lives that there has been a comics industry without either Adams or Perez, and time marches on.
Yeah,
fandom marches on. We can celebrate the legacy of both of these giants, though, in very different ways. I think in terms of Neal Adams, we can celebrate by continuing to champion creators' rights and support publishers that afford creators to retain their rights.
Absolutely.
Any independent scene, really. And in terms of George Perez, I think, to me, the best way to celebrate his memory is kind of an echo of something I say at the end of nearly every episode, is just to be good to each other. Like, be a good, kind-hearted human being and share your love of comics or, music or film or whatever it is that moves you. Share it with the people around you with an infectious joy. And maybe not all the peeps are going to get it, but somebody will.
Yeah.
And if you can share your passion with people in a way that touches them and impacts them, you've done something right. And I think that is George Perez's real legacy, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's a legacy of someone that loved the industry as a whole, love the people that supported the industry.
Yeah.
And in turn, he was supporting them as the fans were supporting him.
Yeah.
So it was such a circle, like you said, of love that, once again, irreplaceable, because there's, and creators, when they go to conventions, they can set how they run, pricing and their businesses and stuff like that. That's fine. I totally get it, because everyone gotta make a sandwich every now and then. But when there's creators charging astronomical fees for titles, for titles,
Yeah.
for titles, so if I have a favorite cover of this creator, I'm getting charged like double and triple. So let me just get some 8x10 that your assistant printed out for you before you flew over here. Super. And I just think there's, we all got our, horror stories from cons and stuff like that from creators, but there's never been a horror story about George Perez.
Nope. Absolutely not.
And I think that's something that folks can learn from his art, and they can learn how he treated people all over the world. And
Absolutely. So Neal Adams, George Perez, our hats are off to you. We and the rest of fandom, stand very humbly in the legacy of these two great men and great artists, but more importantly, great human beings.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, do you have any? We're running actually kind of way ahead this week, and I don't want to just ramble just because for the next 23 minutes. But if you didn't have anything else, to say, I think we could call it a night a little early tonight.
We could. I will say one last thing. The new Teen Titans #1, my favorite cover, where they're running.
Oh, really?
My favorite. It's my all-time favorite cover.
Really? That's such a classic cover.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you that or not, but that's that's my all-time favorite color. I think if you're gonna do a superhero comic cover, that's what you do.
That's what you aspire to do,
right? Because superheroes, they're bigger than life, right?
Yeah.
We want them to be bigger than life. We want their powers to be bigger than life. And so I think when you look at that cover and they're running and it's the whole team, it's fabulous.
They're coming at you.
Yeah, that's a superhero cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a well-balanced piece of art too.
It is
like
magnificent.
Every character has equal weight in the image.
Yeah.
And
they have their own space. It's
absolutely.
You can talk about it all day.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, without further ado, I think we're going to wrap it up a little early. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really horrifying things happening in the world today, and it's hard to even talk about, really.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about it. In general, as a society, we have to not accept that the death of 19 school children and 2 adults is something that's just, well, we couldn't do anything about it. It's normal. And it just shatters me that there's like this, I don't know, there's like a whole chunk of the country, Mike, that is just like, I guess we should have only one door at the school. There's literally nothing else we could do.
Nope.
And so just in the light of in the face of the worst, most absolute horror imaginable, do yourself, do the world, do your neighbor, your friends, your families a favor, and just get out there and be a good person. That's all you have to do to make the world just a tiny, tiny bit better. And I know that sounds like a little bit of hippy dippy baloney, but it's true.
It's true.
And yeah. So anyway, we love you all, and we will see you next week. And until then, support your local comic shop, read something good, and above all else, be good to one another. Thank you so much.